With there being a patch every 2 weeks, there always ends up being some sort of crazy new way of playing a hero that you've never seen before. This is the untold secret of Dazzle Offlane, and yes, it's a farming Dazzle Offlane. You might think I'm crazy too for even suggesting this, but it's only good in certain drafts. So what you need in your draft is some of these things. You don't need all of them, just one or two of them. You have long team fights, early pushing. You can either be doing a solo or a dual offlane, it doesn't matter. But another really strong thing that will benefit with this hero is doing multi-unit heroes that are your allies. So heroes like Chen, who can get a bunch of creeps in the jungle. You've Terrorblade with illusions, and my favorite one is Broodmother, because you can just get all the spiderlings to go in on someone and then you just heal bomb them. It's like crazy strong. I've really enjoyed playing Dazzle this way, and I've had pretty good success too. If you know of any other builds I can do and possibly make this a regular series, tell me down in the comment section. And also, I've made a Discord. I want to bring the community together a little bit more. I've seen a lot of interesting conversations going on, and I've also given stuff away like Steam gift cards over the next couple of months leading up to TI. So please go join the Discord. So here are your starting items. You have 6 tangos, a ring of protection, 2 iron branches, an observer ward, and fairy fire. The fairy fire is so that you can do more right click damage, because you have very little damage on level 1 and 2. Now the other thing is your other items are there because you're going to build into a ring of Basilius, a boots of speed, and wand in the early game. The ring of protection is kind of useful at the start and gives you a little bit more advantage when you're trading right clicks back and forth. But what's really important is that when you're in the laning stage, that you're constantly using poison touch every time it's off cooldown. You want to be getting poison touch on level 1, because if you just get your heal or your shallow grave, it's usually not that useful, and you end up pushing the lane as well with your heal. The other thing is that you can obviously do this trick of where you shallow grave yourself and TP back to base. Now this is why I want you to say that you want to constantly be spamming your spells out, is because you can just shallow grave yourself and TP back to the base. You escape dead essentially. If you time it with around like the enemy stuns, they just might only have 1 stun in lane. Once they stun you, you can just shallow grave, go back to base. You're full mana again, you just walk back to base again, or walk back to your lane. It's just a very efficient thing. You can do a lot of harass with this and be punished very little for it, just because of the fact that you've shallow grave. This hero pick is just incredibly good in the off lane if they only have 1 stun or have no stuns at all. So the reason why you're getting Ring of Basilius is not only just for the damage and the mana regen, but it's also because of the fact that your creeps are going to do most of your damage. If your creeps are dying, you're not going to be able to do damage with your heal bomb. So the idea is, what you want to do is try and get the enemy to go on you when your creeps are nearby, and when they do start coming into the creep like range for just to get the heal, maybe they're a melee hero just trying to get a last hit, you can do a lot of harass that way and trying to just line up your heal bomb. And the creeps are essentially what's going to really help you snowball out of this lane. And I can't tell you enough about how much people tilt when a Dazzle Offlane kills them. It's just, they get triggered so hard because they've never seen it before. When you're upgrading your boots, you want to get phase boots literally every game, because not only do you run quicker, but you can get through the creep wave. I was telling you, you're working with your creep wave, you can just get through them and the enemy won't be able to get through as easily. Now the other thing is that your damage output is very similar to that if you just bought power treads. There's very little difference in between. But at this point you're probably like, I'm still not convinced about this. Why is Dazzle Offlane good? Well, the reason is because once you get to level 10, you have plus 75 damage talent, and not only that, your heal bomb is really strong. It gives you a decent amount of sustain in lane, and just even healing yourself in lane, you get more health than just that 6 tangos. The other thing that's really important to do that I see people doing wrong is not getting their ultimate on level 6. It's just so good, the weave is, and how it combines with your other spells. Your other spells are physical damage, so it's really strong, and when you use weave on them, they can't dispel it. So the thing is that they're debuffed for a long time, and then while they're still debuffed, you can play aggressive, and it allows you just to, once you hit level 6, to give you even a little bit more control in lane. Not only that, when they go on you, they completely underestimate you when you only have 1 point in shallow grave. The reason why you get 1 point in shallow grave is because poison touch just does a lot of damage. You're not really a support at this point of the game, and you're pretty much just trying to do as much damage output as possible. The other thing you can do is shallow grave yourself and just man fight the enemy, and if they're just trying to get you to kill, you can take someone down with you before you die. You mightn't be able to TP out. Sometimes you can TP out, but a lot of the time you can just man fight back and get that 1 kill for that death that you had. Now when it comes to your first big item, you want to buy Orchid. The reason why you want to get Orchid is it's just so good. Nobody expects it. It gives you mana regen, which you're not getting because you don't have arcane boots. It gives you attack speed and damage, and the attack speed is so good because it works really well with that plus 75 talent. As well as this Dazzle kind of lacks a little bit of crowd control, which works really well in with the silence. The other thing is that when you use Orchid on someone, you do a bunch of damage to them, and then it returns 30% of that damage taken as magical damage. This is something that not only people underestimate again, and it's this bizarre interaction that people are constantly forgetting. Even when they've made the mistake against it once or twice, they still end up doing it a third or fourth time, or else even if they don't make that mistake repetitively, you can do it to someone else on the enemy team. Now when it comes to team fights in the mid game, you can do so much in these longer team fights. Just try not to get picked off early on, and anything that can make the fight go on longer is better, because guess what, even if you take some damage, you get away with Shallow Grave, or even if without Shallow Grave, you can just heal yourself up and you effectively have like 2000 health, and even though your health is like 1000, just because you're constantly healing again and again and again. And as well as this, you're outputting so much damage to the enemy and crowd control with this Orchid. One of the items that a lot of people end up going with Dazzle when they're playing it like a core is getting Desolator. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about armor reduction. Well, the thing is, you can go any item like Desolator or Medallion, Solar Crest, but the idea is that Blightstone, first off, is just pointless. It's too expensive for the impact it has. 2 armor is really not enough. And your 2 spells ahead, as I said earlier, are both physical, so it actually works out pretty well if you can get a Medallion. So if you're doing really bad with Dazzle Offlane, you can always go a Medallion, but it ends up, in my opinion, being very ineffective item after around 20 minutes. It slows down your Orchid timing, but the only advantage is the fact that you can use a Sage Mask from your Ring of Basilius. You can disassemble your Ring of Basilius and use that towards your Medallion, or alternatively you can use it towards your Orchid. However, I found that upgrading to a Solar Crest benefits you very little, because the fact that your health is so small, and that evasion, even if you increase like your evasion by a certain percentage, when your health is really low, evasion isn't as effective as it would be for, say, a hero with double your amount of HP. Say a hero with 2000 or 3000 health, more evasion, because it's percentage based, it becomes more effective. And I found that Solar Crest in general, it's a good damage amp, but the benefit for the cost is not as good as, say, maybe Orchid can do. With Desolator, it's a pretty good item to go after Orchid if you do want to go down the damage route, but I also find that it's really important to build a situational item after the Orchid based on what your team needs. It might be a Halberd, it might be whatever else, like maybe a Hex. You might even need something that saves yourself, like an Aeon Disc. But these are the items that I've found most effective, which is Forestaff, Glimmer Cape, Aeon Disc and Bloodthorn. These are pretty good items. Bloodthorn makes you crit so heavily, it's insane. I was doing crits one match for like 900 at the end of the game. Forestaff is good for just getting away from certain heroes. You just need to like movement. Mobility is lacking a lot in Dazzle, and the Glimmer Cape is really good not only for saving yourself but also your allies. The Aeon Disc is where you want to pick Aeon Disc up, is when you need more HP and you need to survive these heroes like Klinks or Slark, which are just going to jump on you and try and kill you from full health before you can use any spells or get away from them. Now going into the late game, generally with Dazzle Offlane you want to finish the game out as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, these heroes like Terrorblade, Broodmother, Chen are all these heroes that are trying to push hard and push fast, and the thing is that Dazzle wants games to end early, and going to the late game is not always the best. But what you do really want to start doing is positioning like a support, because you're just going to get picked off. You're not a tank, you're not durable, you're going to die very quickly. Don't stand in the front line, stand in the trees. Shallow Grave your carry, it's really important. They do so much damage. Your damage becomes a little bit of a novelty sometimes later on, and it's just important to position yourself correctly and not just go really greedy and constantly going for more and more damage items. And do really consider buying these defensive items, otherwise your item build go from something crazy that people were never expecting to something that will just pull you down and blatantly make you lose games that, again, no one likes to lose a lot of games. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Will be making more mechanics videos, and I already have made loads, and you go subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more guides like this, remember, tell me down in the comments what you think of this, and I might make more of them.